Welcome to the HyperIP for Hyper-V installation video. In this video, we will create a HyperIP virtual appliance, perform the initial configuration to add HyperIP on the network, and request and install keys. This video assumes you've downloaded and extracted the files from the HyperIP download package and have resources available to install the HyperIP. When the HyperIPs are installed in the data path, data sent from server Fulham to server Metz will be directed to HyperIP Arsenal and wrapped in the HyperIP protocol for delivery across the WAN. If Fulham wants to communicate to a server external to the remote Hyper-V server, it will follow a similar path. In this video, HyperIP Arsenal will be used as an example. It will require the host name, data port IP address with network mask, and the default gateway. The Quick Start Guide and the download package contains data sheets to assist in gathering your site information. Use Hyper-V Manager to import the HyperIP virtual appliance. Select your host and import virtual machine. Change the import settings to copy the virtual machine, browse to your saved file, and click Import. I'll change the name of my virtual machine and then put it on the network. When adding HyperIP interfaces, the top interface is used for all HyperIP data transfers. This interface is mandatory and may also be used for management. Map this interface to the network your servers and storage will use to communicate with HyperIP. The second interface is used only when a separate management network is required. When the virtual appliance installation is complete, power it on. Connect to the virtual appliance to configure HyperIP onto the network. The default user ID and password are HIPAdmin, HIPADMIN. In the CLI, a question mark lists the commands available. Shift, page up, and page down allow movement in the console to view commands that may have scrolled off the page. Tab will complete a command or give you a list of possible completions. Entering a command and then question mark will provide options for that command. Configure the hostname using the command cfg hostname name. Configure the data interface using the command cfg interface data IP address netmask interface speed use auto to auto negotiate and MTU. To allow user communication with these interfaces, we need to configure access. I will allow HTTPS on the data port using the command cfg access on data HTTPS. I will also enable ping so we can verify connectivity. If you are using the management port, execute these commands using MGMT for the interface. Note, the data and management interfaces cannot be on the same subnet. Configure a default gateway using the command cfg default gateway IP address. The initial interface configuration is complete. Check the restarts necessary to implement changes by executing show restarts. For the changes we made, a reboot is required. Enter reboot. When the reboot is completed and HyperIP is connected to your network, log in using a web browser. What is the default password? That's right, HIPAdmin, HIPADMIN. You should set your password to meet your site requirements by using the Change Admin Password area on this page. The HyperIP serial number will be displayed in the left panel. Copy the serial number, making sure you capture all the characters. Request a key by going to netx.com. Click the Request a Key link at the top of the page. Copy the serial numbers into the HyperIP serial numbers text box. Fill in the information. If you received an email with a download request reference number, you can enter your email address and the reference number and click Retrieve My Info to fill in the data. Select the key type. Complete the request by reading and accepting the license agreement. Keys will be sent via email. The HyperIP browser interface has drop-down menus for navigation, help, and common commands. These are located in the upper left-hand panel. Navigate to the Install Commands page, enter the key in the License Key window, and click Install Key. We will need to perform a restart force to start the HyperIP software. It's always a good idea to check pending restarts in case any other changes are pending. No other changes are pending. Select Restart Force in the drop-down menu and click Services Apply. Confirm the restart. When the HyperIP state shows running, click the Click Here link to log into the HyperIP. You've just learned how to import a HyperIP virtual appliance, configure interface and access parameters to install HyperIP on the network, request and install HyperIP keys. Now you are ready to complete the configuration using the browser user interface. View the configuration video for the next steps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.